Welcome to Legacy Chiller Systems. My name is Dwayne Ribbley. I'm with the Process Engineering Department. This video is about the once-through tank setup. We're going to be going over the pros and the cons, and I'm going to show you how this tank setup will affect your process. Why do we need a tank in our process? One of the main reasons why we need a tank in our process is for system volume. If you don't have enough piping between your chiller and the piece of equipment that you're trying to cool, a tank is a great solution to store that volume. The reason why we need system volume is to satisfy the chiller evaporator. The chiller evaporator needs to have around 2.5 to 3 gallons of system volume per ton somewhere in the process. That can be in a tank, that can be in piping, or that can be in both. For example, if you have a 5-ton chiller, there needs to be around 15 gallons of system volume. If you have a 30-ton chiller, there needs to be around 90 gallons of system volume. A lot of people go off 2.5 gallons of system volume per ton. We recommend 3. If you don't have enough volume in your system, you're basically going to shut down your refrigeration system by short cycling the compressor. Once your refrigeration system goes down, you're not going to be able to cool your piece of equipment. Always make sure you have enough volume in your system. Another good reason to have a tank in your process is it can act as a system buffer. What a system buffer is bringing a tank temperature down over time using a smaller chiller. For example, if you have a 150-gallon tank and you want to bring it from 55F to 45F, you can do it in about 10 minutes with a 6-ton chiller. If you take that same tank from 55 down to 45, you can do it within about an hour with a 1-ton chiller. This is really good if you don't have a budget for a 6-ton chiller, but you do have a budget for a 1-ton chiller. And this is also good if you do not have a high demand of flow rate to your process. We have a lot of customers that do this. Let's go over what a once-through chiller is. A once-through chiller is where the process water comes back directly to the chiller evaporator. These systems typically have one pump, and that one pump will create one loop. Let's go over a drawing of a PACT package chiller set up as a once-through. You're going to notice that the tank is on the supply side of the process, and there's one in and one out. One thing to keep in mind is that you always want to store cold fluid to your process. You don't want to put your tank on the return side and store warm fluid. So let's move along to the process water side here. You have your piece of equipment, and that's going to generate heat, and that heat's going to be transferred to the water or water glycol, and it's going to be brought back directly to that chiller evaporator, which is this piece right here. The heat's going to be rejected to the refrigerant side, and then it will reject it to a water source or out to the air. Then you're going to have your desired leaving water temperature going back to your tank, and then your pumps are going to pull off that tank and it will go out to your process. You're going to notice that there's 2 system pumps on this setup, and sometimes that's just an option to have a backup pump. But one thing to keep in mind about the once-throughs is that there's one loop, and that one loop is directly tied with that chiller evaporator. And once I get into the pros and cons, I'll get into a little more in depth of how that one loop is really tied together with your process and your chiller evaporator. Let's go over the pros and cons of a once-through chiller. The first pro is that you can run higher suction temperatures. Suction temperature is the temperature of your refrigerant. The lower suction refrigerant temperatures you have, the less capacity on your chiller. The higher suction temperatures that you have, the more capacity that you'll gain out of a chiller. For example, if you have 55 degree F returning to your chiller evaporator directly, and you need 45 degrees going back out to your process, you can do this with 45 degree suction temperature. And you can only have a 5 degree temperature difference between the suction and the desired leaving process water. On a recirc setup, you're going to have around an 8 to 10 degree temperature difference, and that chiller is going to have less capacity on it. I can really do a whole video on this. Another pro is that there's one less pump, and that will keep costs down. The same goes for piping on an external tank. Kind of goes for an internal tank too. Yeah, if you have less piping, that will keep costs down. Now, let's get into the cons here. Your process flow rate must satisfy the chiller evaporator. Because you have one loop and everything's so intertwined, you have to satisfy that chiller evaporator, and your process has to be built around the flow rate of the chiller evaporator. Another con is the chiller evaporator cannot see any fluids above 85 degrees F directly. If you introduce a fluid warmer than 85 degrees F, you're going to put too much heat into the refrigeration system and you won't be able to reject it, and your refrigeration system will shut down. Another con is that if your process goes down, your refrigeration system will be affected. Everything's so intertwined into that one loop, and there's so many different variables, and there's more potential service issues added to the chiller because everything's so connected and intertwined. So when you're doing a once-through setup, just keep in mind that there is going to be a little more service issues and potential problems with that. My name is Dwayne Ribbley. I'm with Legacy Chiller Systems. I'm with the Process Engineering Department. Feel free to call me or email me if you have any questions. Find us on Facebook. We have a great YouTube page. And ask about our patented economizer technology called Oracle. Thanks, guys.